All across America, there's something in the air. At a time of year when many try to escape it, there are some who seek out the freezing cold and embrace it. Because in order to play one of the world's hottest sports, you have to start with a cold sheet of ice. And that's just the beginning. The better you get at this game, the more it rocks. Curling is a sport of skill and strategy, where success depends on a smooth delivery and an iron will, and victory can be decided by the smallest of margins. In the first draw, Team USA learned that the hard way, as both the men and the women fell just short in losing to China. Tonight in the Twin Cities, skip Heath McCormick and his squad look to put Team USA on the board as they face a New Zealand team hungry to take its place among the best. Which nation will take the next step towards the top prize in this elite round-robin tournament? We're about to find out. There's something in the air, but it's not the cold. Friday night is curling night on NBCSN. Welcome to NBCSN Curling Night, presented by the United States Olympic Committee. A lot of places would be a great site for this wintertime treat. How about the Twin Cities in Minnesota? Minneapolis, and there you see the capital in St. Paul. Beautiful spot in the United States and lit up here at night, not too far away from downtown, about 10 minutes or so away, Blaine, Minnesota. USA Curling National Training Center, Fogarty Arena, home of the Four Seasons Curling Club, serving as the host for this great event. We're taking a look at the men's tournament draw 2. It's New Zealand and the United States here on curling night. Jason Knapp happy to be joined by 2010 Olympian John Benton. And the four countries taking part, the United States, Japan, China, and New Zealand. And John, we look at the standings after the opening session. New Zealand and China both posting win.
Yeah, it was a great start for New Zealand and China. We're going to see New Zealand tonight. They're a scrappy team. They're kind of in their summer mode right now, because that's what it is in New Zealand right now. But they pulled out a great win. And we're going to see the United States, of course, as well. And they had a tough loss in their first game. They played really well. And I think, you're really going to see them try to step up their game here against New Zealand and try and catch them off guard.
Heath McCormick, a 2012 U.S. national champion. We'll see if the Americans can find some rhythm. And for New Zealand, Hans Frauenlob, a great Olympian of the past.
Yeah, 2006 Olympian. The high-performance team, McCormick's team here, really needs to step up their game. They have a lot of pressure on them to do well.
For more on the matchup, let's check in with Tracy Wilson.
I talked to U.S. skip Heath McCormick after a tough loss to China, and he said, actually, we played great were it not for one stone. So he is not planning to change his strategy at all going up against New Zealand. They're going to look for opportunities when they have the hammer to go after multiple points. New Zealand, on the other hand, is coming off a scrappy win against Japan where it went right down to the wire. I spoke to their skip, Hans Frauenlob, and he said that he was watching the Americans while he was playing Team Japan. He said, I noticed a lot of rocks in play. I expect the Americans to be aggressive and to gamble. He said, we, on the other hand, are going to try and get 1 point every time we have the hammer and just stay in the game.
Tracy, thanks. The United States and New Zealand ready to go? How about we meet the teams?
Heath McCormick, skip. Chris Plies, third.
Joe Polo, second.
Ryan Brunt, lead.
Hans Frauenlob, skip.
Dan Mustovic, third.
Scott Baker, second.
Warren Dobson, lead.
You see the rock colors for both teams. New Zealand with red rocks. The United States, despite wearing the red shirts, will have yellow stones. And the first underway here, the lead, Ryan Brunt from Portage, Wisconsin, starting things off.
Well, I think we're going to see quite a few rocks in play for Team USA here. They're going to want to be aggressive just like they were in their first game. And we heard from Tracy that I think New Zealand's going to want to keep it a little more simple than that and not get into a very complicated game.
And we'll see what the Kiwis have on their opening stone. Here's Warren Dobson, 34-year-old.
Weight's good. Very positive.
It's there by itself, Hans.
Top 4.
There by itself.
Probably T.
That chatter underway, John, from the front end. Conservative opportunities here for New Zealand at the outset, you think?
Yeah, I think so. You see a center guard go up from the U.S., and New Zealand's going to come around it. But as I said, I think New Zealand's going to try and get out of having too many rocks out in front.
Yep.
Here's the second for the 28-year-old Ryan Brunt.
Little big. Whoa.
So the U.S. is just going to try and get a hit and roll here. They're going to try and hit the inside of the stone and roll under that guard, and it runs a little straight on them.
So that yellow stone in the house for the United States, and now the second coming for Dobson.
Bumper!
Control. Control.
Yeah, up a wee bit.
So they're staying off of this as well. Looks like it's not going to curl up and get that all-important roll behind the guard. Guards are so important in curling, and you're really trying to utilize that stone out in front of the house to protect your stones.
The Americans and the Kiwis. More to come on NBCSN Curling Night after this. NBCSN Curling Night is being brought to you by the 2016 World Financial Group Continental Cup of Curling. Come see why Las Vegas rocks. And by USA Curling. Support your national team by visiting www.usacurl.org. And for more on what we'll see tonight, how about a little explanation, John Benson?
Well, we're going to get a look at the important markings on the curling sheet here. Of course, you have the scoring area, which is the rings closest to the center at the end of the end scores. You also have the hog line. You have to be across the hog line to be in play. And then the very important free guard zone, where the first 4 rocks can't be removed from play until the 5th stone if they end up in that area.
See Heath McCormick placing the broom where he would like this shot to come from Joe Polo, operating in the second spot here for the United States team.
Whoa. 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 Never. Yeah. Whoa. 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 A little bit, Ryan.
Again, trying to get that roll. They swept it a little bit. Sweeping, of course, on a takeout is likely to hold the rock straight, whereas on a draw, you're actually trying to extend the distance of the shot.
Scott Becker serving as the second here for New Zealand. 30-year-old and part of what's considered New Zealand's first family of curling. Great history for the Beckers.
Yeah, when you think of curling, you don't necessarily think New Zealand right off the top of your head, but they do have a really strong tradition in New Zealand.
Father Peter, national team skip. His brother Sean was the skip of the men's Olympic team in 2006. And a sister and mother also with deep curling backgrounds as well. And Joe Polo, of course, for the United States, part of that bronze medal winning team with Pete Fenson in 2006.
Yeah, you've got a couple of Fenson's players actually on this high-performance squad. As we see that rock come into the house. And again, they were trading shots back and forth trying to get that roll underneath, and that one curls up a little more and does roll, but rolls exposed. So New Zealand will be able to get after that rock. And this plays right into New Zealand's plans of keeping it kind of simple to start.
The second stone on the way from Becker.
Touch full.
Just escorting that one down.
Another hit and stick there.
Well, our first look at Chris Plies, the third, the vice skip for this American team. You're talking about the high-performance team. John, explain.
Well, USA Curling decided to go a little different route with the Olympic Committee, and this team, as well as the women's team, have basically been hand-selected by a group of coaches, which is brand new to curling. Curling used to be a situation where teams were self-formed and self-managed, right? They might have a coach, but they certainly weren't selected by a squad of coaches. So it's a new system, a new process, and these are all the best players in the country now playing on one single team.
Certainly going through the process of learning one another, maybe playing in a little bit different roles. How much time does that take for them to have that comfort level of teams that have been so gelled over the years?
Well, that's one of the things, one of the big debates right now is most traditional curlers will tell you, you can't do this. Curling is different, and you have to have team chemistry and flow and all of that. And I think what the coaches have said is, if everybody starts with the same goal, it shouldn't matter whether they get along off the ice, let's say. There's a lot more that goes into championship level curling, and if you put the Olympics out there as one of your goals, you know, all of these players are working towards that goal. These are Olympic hopefuls without a doubt.
Saw the shot from Dan Mustapik, the vice skip, the third for New Zealand, clearing the house. Certainly the United States trying to improve upon their subpar showings in Sochi in the last Olympic Games a year ago. We'll see how this new setup works for the United States. Second rock on the way from Plies.
So this is the first opportunity of the game, I would say, with New Zealand rolling out on that last hit. It puts the U.S. in a situation where they can be offensive here and try and get around the guard. That rock not curling in behind.
Again, the rules for NBCSN curling night. 8 ends instead of the normal 10. Shorter time limit, 59 minutes as opposed to the normal 73. You still get your one timeout if you need to chat about something. But that maybe puts a little bit of pressure on teams to have some more aggression with the shorter time frame.
Well, it was really brought into play a few years back to bring a time clock in to keep the pace of play moving. You would actually see some teams try and freeze the other team out, so to speak, by, you know, delaying the game. So it's really meant to keep the game moving. But these teams may run up against that clock. If you get a lot of rocks in play, it can take a lot of time.
Mustapik able to get by that guard and get the takeout.
Sweeping that rock right in. Again, rolling just a little too far. So McCormick will have a chance to take this stone out and maybe get behind the guard, put a little pressure on New Zealand.
Now the 38-year-old national champion in 2012, representing the United States, but lives north of the border in Ontario.
We're seeing that more and more where the dual citizens from Canada are seeing the opportunity that lies south of the border for them to maybe be part of an Olympic squad or a national championship squad.
Not a lot of work from the front end. And that works for Heath McCormick.
He did want to get the roll underneath there. Like I said, to put a little pressure on New Zealand early. Pretty simple end so far. That one guard has been sitting out front the whole end. I'm sure as we get going in this game, that's not going to be the case if Heath McCormick has his way.
To Hans Frauenlob at age 54. 2006 Olympian. New Zealand finished 10th that year, their last Olympic appearance.
Up a wee bit, Dan. Yep. Weights up and fraction. Good try.
Both teams just feeling out the ice here. They're not able to get that roll.
Looked like it was going to take off there, and then it.
Little post-shot discussion between the two 54-year-olds, Mustapik and Frauenlob, two of the veterans of the New Zealand curling scene.
And that's always the challenge. That's maybe something that the TV viewer doesn't see a lot, is the differences between one sheet of ice to the next and how much work goes into actually reading the line. It's a lot like being on a golf green where you have to understand the subtleties of the ice, and it can change as the game goes on.
Last stone of this first end for McCormick and the United States.
Little disappointment there, just really trying to get that roll, that all-important roll of a foot in this case. And he just hits nose. So the idea here for New Zealand is, since they have the hammer, they want to try and keep the hammer. So I would expect them to try and peel this rock out and score nothing, have a blank end, which means they would retain the hammer for the following end.
See what Hans Frauenlob can come up with.
Yep. Okay, I don't think it's there. I don't think it's there. Okay.
Well, it's not getting out, so with the hammer, New Zealand forced into one. So the Kiwis on the board, but the United States will have the hammer coming up in the next end. So New Zealand with the early advantage. NBCSN Curling Night underway from Minnesota. Back on curling night after New Zealand was forced to one in the first end. Second end underway. Each team with a stone in the house. The United States with shot rock for the moment.
The U.S. has hammer, of course, in this end. And as predicted, there's a few more rocks in play this end. Looks like a pretty good opportunity for the U.S. team. New Zealand here is forced to play some defense. Typically, when you have the hammer, you want to keep the rocks spread out. You want to keep the middle open, so at the very least, with your last rock, you can get in there for one. And the U.S. has really taken the play in this end away from center.
This is the first stone of this end for Dan Mustapik.
He really wants to freeze down here, just nuzzle up to that yellow stone, and he's a little heavy. Makes a little tap there. A little hard to see who might be second count in the rings. Heath taking a look at that.
Yeah, hit that, right? Yeah, I mean, you don't really want to roll into the corner, do you? I mean,
John, this is so much an element of the game as the shot execution. It's the decision-making process of what's the best opportunity.
It is. Heath has to look at this and say, okay, we can easily remove this red stone, but which way do we want our stone to go? Looks like he's going to play Chris Plies to hit and roll underneath those corner guards.
The 27-year-old from Duluth, Minnesota, looking on intently.
And that's a perfect shot by Chris Plies. Of course, we still don't know who's second count there, but
Nice having y'all on this side now.
see them working that rock, sweeping it to hold it straight so it doesn't roll too far. Rolls under those guards you see on the side there. And New Zealand now forced again to throw a defensive freeze here. They'd rather be playing to the middle of the sheet, but they're trying to prevent the U.S. from scoring two or more in this end.
Hard line. Real hard. Hard line. Back line. Hard line.
This is curling. I think he's all over the guard here. He is. So that's a miss by New Zealand. Does open those yellows up, does move that guard out of the way. So now Heath
So I had a 95 on me last time.
is going to put the broom down for them to come underneath the center guards here and put some pressure on.
So opportunity here for Chris Plies and the United States. Former gold medalist at the World Junior Championships back in 2008.
It's back house. No. Where is it? Back 8. Okay, right back here. It's got to stop.
And this is never a good sign when your sweepers are just walking next to the stone. They really wanted that rock to be further up in the house and not slide to the back of the rings here, because that That leaves a number of options for New Zealand to get out of trouble here.
So Chris Plies a little upset with himself not to execute when the Americans had it opening.
Well, doesn't really matter. Doesn't really matter. I think out turn actually. What turn's easier to call? Well, I just haven't seen that many interns coming down that track. So what do you like here? Not much, or what do you like for ice? Yeah, edge of the red.
Well, you may notice a lack of true New Zealand accent for Mustapik and Frauenlob, unlike their teammates Becker and Dobson. They're both originally from Canada and both moved to New Zealand. A little bit of a lifestyle change for both, and both part of the curling culture now with the Kiwis.
Yeah, both of those guys coming from Canada grew up with the game, of course, which is very common in Canada.
In fact, Frauenlob actually used to have a job working for the Toronto Blue Jays in the team's IT department, has World Series rings from the Blue Jays World Series titles in the early 90s.
So Hans executing a double takeout there, wanted to get both yellow stones out of play if possible, but he does a pretty good job. He just clips that second stone and now leaves New Zealand lying shot on the side of the rings there, that red stone in front of the tee line.
Just nose it. Yeah. Control.
So this is still a very good opportunity for the U.S.
Heath McCormick, we mentioned earlier, living in Canada and representing the United States. He's an insurance broker, real estate investor in his normal life outside of curling.
Whoa. Close. Whoa. Close.
It's really important for the United States to stick around here. Right off, never from Chris Plies. That rock's rolling too far. That's a huge mistake.
Shot?
Heath McCormick hoping maybe it would be shot, but it's not. So what's New Zealand have to choose from now, John?
Well, looking at the overhead here, if New Zealand can put a rock anywhere in front of this yellow stone, they're going to be in really good shape to get a force. This draw coming down. Just needs to finish anywhere in front of that yellow stone so that the U.S. can't remove it.
Not yet, though, not yet. Coming down. Here. Yep, now, come on, yep. Yep, yep. Yep, 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 yep. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Shot, shot. Shot.
Great shot there by Hans. And the U.S. likely going to be forced to take 1 point here. Although
A big half.
Heath and Chris looking at that combination of stones on the right-hand side of the sheet there as we look at it.
Let's draw for one. Yeah. Seriously? Like firm? Yep.
So Heath McCormick still discussing it. John, take us through what you think they might attempt here.
Well, typically you'd see a team draw for one here, but they're actually lining up a hit on this yellow stone. They're going to try and hit just a piece of it and drive this red stone back. Their shooter will roll across to this other red stone in the back of the house, and they could end up scoring 4 here.
How much? Firm? Okay.
So they could opt to draw here and take 1, but instead Heath McCormick going to try to create some multi-stone magic and see if the U.S. with the hammer can score more than 1.
Whoa.
Degree of difficulty on this shot is about a 9.9 out of 10.
Yeah! Yes! Hard!
Looks close.
Hard!
Hits it. Doesn't get the action he wanted. He almost made that shot, but it's only for 1.
Almost got it done, but just like in the first end when New Zealand was forced to 1, same to the United States, and it's 1-1 after 2. Forget full moon fever. We've got curling fever. NBCSN Curling Night presented by the United States Olympic Committee. Hope you're enjoying the action from Fogarty Arena in Minnesota. Jason Knapp and John Benton. Third and underway. New Zealand and the United States tied at 1 apiece. And here's the situation for Joe Polo and Team USA.
Well, the U.S. missing a big opportunity there to pick up a big score. They were forced to one. So now we see a center guard out front. A couple of New Zealand rocks in the forefoot. And the U.S. trying to take advantage of that, use them as stoppers or backing to try and be able to steal another point. Joe tapping that stone in for shot. It is frozen there, so it's not a bad situation.
Yeah, if we could get to nose with about hack, Scott, that would be great.
Even if you roll off the outside onto theirs.
Yeah, I mean, that's plan B if we do that.
Yeah.
What about the other turn? Is there anything there? Anything on the other turn? I mean, we could draw here.
A lot of discussion here by the Kiwis. What they want to try to do is unlock that yellow stone.
Push our red one to the back back of the house. Well, I was thinking about, pushing the red here. Back house weight. You think it's easier to do that on the out turn? That's what I thought with the in turn. I thought we'd come to the in turn with like a hack weight. No, what about or even if just beat this and push this to here. Yeah. Get those out of the way and leave ours on top. That's what I mean. Yeah, get to the nose, but with what kind of weight? Back line? Well, I think so, probably. You can control it better, eh? Yeah. Back line, Scott.
Back line. So for that Dobby, that we're looking at 3.
Great discussion there. Talking to Dan Mustpick there, they really just want to move that red stone back, their own stone back, and leave their shooter sitting in front of the yellow. This is that rock position game that we talk about so much in curling. It's not always about getting shot right away.
So all that talk, we'll see if Scott Becker can execute.
This rock really curling. Going to clip the guard.
Okay, Hans. Not bad.
Open things up a bit. It's not the worst result.
Didn't get out to it.
Mentioned the great history in the Becker family. His grandfather, one of the first to bring the international game to New Zealand in the 1970s. Now Joe Polo.
I think the U.S. is going to be happy to just replace that guard.
Slower in the middle or
Sit.
So you hear the U.S. team there. A lot of question about how Joe threw that rock. It overcurls, doesn't sit in front of the yellow stone, which is going to leave that same opportunity for New Zealand to unlock that yellow stone, get their own stone on top of it. Going to throw a little more weight this time, hit a little harder.
Up. Close. Little off, baby.
Close.
Yep. Whoa.
Whoa, boys.
Whoa. The nose
Close.
is good. Well, a little across nose is great. Great shot.
Nice shot there. Unlocks that stone. You see the yellows are open for hitting later.
Pete Fenson, the Olympic bronze medalist from 2006, an 8-time national champ, transitioning now to a new part of his career as Team USA coach.
I'm a full-time, technically half-time coach, but I'm not a player anymore. I'm officially retired from competition, and I'm the coach of the men's national team. Still is a work in progress. Being the coach is a whole different set of skills. Trying to draw from, obviously, my career as a player and the knowledge that I've acquired and using it to help the team come along and improve. For me too, there's a lot of things that I kind of need to come to terms with, because I sit behind the glass now and analyze the games and make notes and I don't throw any more shots. So, it's been a bit of a process for me trying to, acquire the skills necessary to be their coach now.
Ellie may not be throwing rocks anymore, but Pete Fenson certainly will continue to influence USA curling. The Americans and the Kiwis tied at 1. More in a moment. Back to action here in end number 3 between New Zealand and the United States. Again, each team taking a single point in the first 2 ends. And now this certainly the most intricate, with stones closely placed in the house here, of this game so far.
Nose is pretty close.
Shuffled a few things around, and now New Zealand laying 2 there in the forefoot. So it looks like Heath's going to call a run back here for Chris Plies, try and get some of those stones moving.
This the second stone of this end for the United States third.
Hard! Throwing peel weight here.
Hard!
Great shot by Chris. Doesn't get both of the stones moving out of the house, but he does end up sitting shot, and I think there's a guard out front. See that rock run back. You would like to see those rocks run straighter back. Would have gotten both reds out of the rings, but as it is, it's a great shot by Chris.
So that combination has given the United States shot rock for the time being.
Gotta go, guys. Hurry!
Remember, New Zealand with hammer in this end.
Swept this rock right out of Dan's hand, and he's again on the guard. We saw this earlier. It looks like Dan might be having a little trouble with that in-turn release. An in-turn being a clockwise rotation of the stone. Might be just turning that in a little bit.
Sorry, Hans. That's okay, Dan. Twice I've been onside in that in-turn. What's that? Little tight again, eh? Just tight, yeah. Twice I've been onside inside. Yeah. It's all right.
Just no.
Again, John, Dan must have been confirming your suspicions there. Issues with that shot. We'll see if he can clean it up as we progress.
So this is the fun part about curling. When I look at it, just 2 shots ago, New Zealand was laying 2, and they were looking pretty good to score this end. And in a matter of 2 shots, if Heath McCormick makes this open hit, U.S. is going to be laying 2 and look to force New Zealand to 1.
Real hard. Hard. All the way to it.
This rock curling a lot.
No, Chris.
Makes a nice hit and roll there. I think they wanted to stick on the nose because this will leave a double for New Zealand to try and get out of the end with a blank. See this rock coming in here. He catches about half of the stone and it rolls in directly behind, which would be great if there was a guard out front, but there's nothing in the way for New Zealand here to be able to make this double.
So Hans Frauenlob ready to get down to business here. His first stone in the third.
Yep, hard. Yep, hurry. Real hard. Gotta go, gotta go.
Well, and they're on his rock right away out of his hand.
Throw behind the corner. Yep.
He might have turned that in as well.
Okay, Hans.
Rock rolls way out to the edge. Heath trying to get that one out of the rings, but it does spin back.
That's pretty ugly slide. What's that? Pretty ugly slide. I think with me, I'm just getting the rock a bit too far in front of me.
Here are the adjustments for the New Zealanders. Frauenlob and Mustapik talking about what they need to change up.
U.S. laying 1 on the button.
Same sort of weight. How do you think this is going to run?
Should run like this one ran over here.
Yeah. Curl a bit and then straighten at the end would be my guess. You like that? Sure.
Just kind of throwing normal.
Yeah, like control-ish, normal-ish. Yeah.
So the idea for Heath here is to hit and stick on this rock. He wants to lay 2. And that again will force New Zealand to take their 1 point.
Really got to go. Come on. Hard!
This one moving. They're not happy with this.
Wow.
Getting really close to the boards. And that's a clean miss by Heath.
Didn't like the angle of it the whole way, and it continued to slide wide.
Well, that rock just curled more than I think they were expecting, and that's just a really, really big mistake by the U.S. Now New Zealand can hit this yellow stone and take 2 with the hammer, which is exactly what they were looking for in this situation.
So Hans Frauenlob, last stone of this third end, and the chance to seize control of this game.
All the way, fellas. All the way, all the way, all the way.
Again, sweeping this right out of his hand.
All the way. All the way up, boys.
Really got to hold this to get his 2. He's going to roll, and will he roll out? He does.
Wow.
Back-to-back misses there by New Zealand and the U.S.
So the United States opened the door, but New Zealand really unable to walk through it. For the third straight end, just a single point scored. New Zealand up 2-1 after 3 in Minnesota. A look at the Hennepin Avenue Bridge in Minneapolis. Glorious view there. Curling's fun too. NBCSN Curling Night, presented by the United States Olympic Committee. Jason Epp, John Benson back with you. New Zealand up 2-1 after 3 ends. Action underway here in the 4th. And New Zealand has shot rock. And this rock from Dan Mustapik, the United States, remember, with hammer here in the 4th.
Well, so far the game's gone according to plan for New Zealand. Pretty simple, just single points so far. Not the cleanest game yet. New Zealand trying to apply some pressure by getting around this guard. They just barely get by. But they do lay 3 at this point. Lots of pressure on the U.S.
Plenty of work for the Americans to do, and pressure on the United States in more ways than one. Remember, this is a 4-team competition, part of the Curling Night Series for the men and the women. The United States, China, Japan, and New Zealand, a double round robin. New Zealand won its opening match. The United States lost its opening match, so the U.S. does not want to fall into an 0-2 hole.
Hard! Hard! Hard!
Playing the run back here. 1-2. Great shot by Chris Plies, cleaning things up.
An Olympian back in 2010, Chris Plies, displaying his skills.
Runs it in, gets both Reds moving. Very well done. He's got to be happy with that outcome.
Body English. Don't know if it always helps, but it probably always feels good if you can make that work.
No. Fair enough.
So how does that change things here now for New Zealand, John?
Well, it really cleaned everything off of the center line. So now New Zealand, just a shot ago, they were on offense, and now they're having to play defense. Want to get rid of this one remaining yellow stone in the rings. They do. They stick around. They'll lay 2, but now the house is pretty wide open for the U.S. to be able to generate some offense.
You want just top 8? Yep. Where are you at? Right in the middle, I think. Yeah.
So Heath McCormick sliding back into position.
He's good everywhere now, right? I think so. All right, Dunker.
One of the things that you see a lot in the game is just the level of communication between the players. Heath's always going to confirm with his sweepers what the speed or the weight of the ice is for a shot like this. And it can vary in different places on the ice depending on how many shots have been thrown.
And again, with this new high-performance makeup for the United States squads, with these players really starting to learn their roles, the communication level so important.
Really gotta go. Hard! Come on!
They got to work this rock to get it under the guard. Looks to be a little light. Just wrecks on the guard. There's an opportunity missed. He's struggling quite a bit this game. Really keeping New Zealand in it.
Like this? Like that? No, I gave you.
Had a couple of opportunities to really put some pressure on and just haven't been able to execute.
There's no prizes for crashing the guard, though.
Okay, full come around. Top two? Yep.
So far, the Kiwis seem to be pretty relaxed in this game. There's been quite a bit of banter and a few chuckles. I think they're just playing a little looser than the States are right now.
And again, they won their opening match, coming in here as the lowest ranked of the 4 men's teams. So, as you mentioned, kind of free-flowing right now for this team. Not expected to be the powerhouse in this competition, but certainly right in it here with the U.S.
This rock skating a little bit, nowhere close to the guard. Slides past the tee line. Chris Ply's trying to sweep that rock through. Does lay 3, but again, just a cut up out on the ice. Hans Frauenlob getting the crowd going.
Final stone of this 4th end, and again, both teams not as crisp as they would like to be here in this game. Now the U.S. just try to salvage something.
Well, this is a situation, as opposed to the situation earlier where we thought they might be forced to one. There's no shot for 4 here for Heath, so he's just got to put it in the rings, get it closer than those 3 reds.
Keep brooms down.
Just cleaning that rock in, making sure there's no debris in the way. And that looks like it's going to settle in there.
Well, able to draw for 1. And the United States matching New Zealand to this point. A flurry of singles, 2-2 after 4. NBCSN Curling Night is being brought to you by the 2016 World Financial Group Continental Cup of Curling. Come see why Las Vegas rocks. And by USA Curling. Support your national team by visiting www.usacurl.org. Well, the state of Minnesota is certainly one of the curling hotbeds in America. Beautiful look at the Minneapolis-St. Paul region, and the action continues on Curling Night. Jason App and John Benson with you. So far in this match between New Zealand and the United States, a lot of potential, John, for big scoring ends, but they haven't materialized.
Yeah, and the first end here, New Zealand just trying to blank the end, and they stick it on the nose. They take 1. Just some missed opportunities by both teams. Heath McCormick taking a chance here in the second end to maybe score 4. Thought they had this shot made for 4, but they actually hit it too thin, only end up getting 1 point. Then in the third end, just a relatively simple shot for Hans Frauenlob to get his 2 points. He just needs to hit it on the nose. It over curls and rolls out. So a single point there for New Zealand. And the U.S. in the 4th, forced to 1 after another couple misses on the U.S. side.
Always like to score multiple points with the hammer. Nobody doing so to this point. Heath McCormick, what does he think? Tracy Wilson caught up with him for his thought.
Heath, your plan was to stick with your style of game, conservative and aggressive at the same time. How do you think you and your teammates did?
I think our strategy's been okay so far. The play's been a little bit sloppy. But we're fortunate to be tied here, and we're going to obviously need to, and we're going to play hopefully a fair bit better the second half and go from there.
A little more aggressive the second half, or just tighter and better execution?
Tighter and better execution. I don't think we had a couple chances there that just didn't quite go the way we anticipated, but yeah, as I say, it was a little sloppy, but we'll try and pick it up the last half.
Thanks, Heath. Good luck.
Okay, thanks.
Well, one of the members of this United States team for Skip Heath McCormick, Joe Polo, a veteran, but a veteran in a different role.
Well, to start out the year, I was playing third, and I moved back down to second with the addition of Heath on the team. So it really hasn't changed a whole lot. I'm still playing second, still sweeping 6 rocks and throwing 2. Well, it's a little different. I guess I'm one of the older guys on the team now, and I get recognized a lot more. Shortly after we won the medal, there was a lot more media and a lot more people that were recognizing me, and they wanted to learn about curling. And it was a really cool experience for me. It's always nice having Pete around. I curled with him for 10 years. I consider him like a brother to me. So having Pete around, it's a kind of a comfort level for myself. That and sometimes there's pizza around.
Pete Fenson, of course, owns a pizza parlor, if you didn't know, in Minnesota. Don't know about having slices on hand, but if you're hungry for more curling, we'll feed you some more in a moment. A peek at Calhoun Square in Minneapolis. NBCSN Curling Night, presented by the United States Olympic Committee, continues. 2-2 the score as we pick up action in end number 5 between the United States and New Zealand. Can somebody break open one of these ends? Look at Joe Polo's percentage numbers through the first half of this 8-end game. Remember, shorter than the normal traditional 10 ends.
No. Back 8? Really?
Well, and you see 65% there for Joe Polo, and that's a pretty low number for Joe, and he'll not be happy. Here's another miss.
Well, the United States, John, hosting this event. You've got other countries from around the globe here. Are you surprised that the U.S. is struggling with this ice?
We're getting suckered if we chase it.
It's a little hard to say that I'd be surprised. A TV event, bringing these other teams in, this is, going to be the best ice in the world. It's going to be fast. I think it's probably just more a factor of what we had talked about earlier, is teams gelling and learning how to communicate. They've had most of a season so far together, but you still, in this type of situation, those types of things are going to show up where you may not be right on the same page with everybody on the team.
Get a new system in place to put together the best athletes for the United States in curling and pair them together to form some powerhouse teams to improve their performance on the international level. Joe Polo certainly has a great pedigree, 5-time U.S. national champion, and part of the bronze medal winning team from the 2006 games for the United States.
Top 8, room though. Tons of room.
And Jason, so far, just to be clear, the teams on this sheet of ice, the shots that they've been missing are relatively simple shots. So it's not as if this has been a super complicated game, which is why I think, Heath's comment about it being a little sloppy, that's what you kind of get the feeling when you're missing open hits and open draws. It feels sloppy. It's not like the shot that where he was trying to get 4. That was a tough shot.
As we look at Scott Becker get with this shot, when you've got a game like this, John, where it's just not going right, are you more cautious, or do you try to really push yourself through the problems?
Well, you do try to simplify the game to a point to build confidence. You want to be able to make some simple shots to build confidence for later in the game. Of course, you can't rely on that for the entire game, because eventually you're going to have to make some big shots to win.
And the shots continue in a moment. looking to see if we finally have a multi-point end here in this competition between New Zealand and the United States. Strictly singles through the first 4 ends. Chris Plies with a stone here as we pick up the action in N5.
Really soft.
So far, Chris has been the shining star of the U.S. team for this game, shooting 88%, made a couple of really good runbacks to clean things up.
Come on, curl.
U.S. sitting shot, trying to get a guard placed in front of that stone.
Jeez Louise. What'd I give you?
Seems to be a little bit of question about that side of the ice. Heard Chris say, is it straight? Meaning that it doesn't curl as much.
So still giving these teams problems in the second half of this 8-end game.
Never.
Should have stayed with the heck option. Yeah, I know, but it's coming. It's not going to sit around.
Just catches a piece of it and actually moves it underneath the guards.
So you didn't like the back line hack weight down control.
Hearing uh-oh halfway down is never really a good sign.
Not at all, and Dan's really struggled this game.
Again, the reason that we're tied is neither team's been able to take advantage when the opportunity has been there to apply pressure to the other side.
So this is another situation. If the U.S. can get another stone under the guards, it put a lot of pressure on New Zealand. This is what Heath wanted to do. He wanted to apply lots of pressure to New Zealand, make them make some tough shots. And that's a good shot by Chris Plies.
So the Americans lie too.
So line 2.
Normal? Yeah, normal.
New Zealand is going to have to open this up a little bit. So they're going to hit this top yellow stone, try and spill as many stones as they can. You're always looking to leave yourself a path for your skip's last rock. If in the worst case scenario you're forced to one. And that's a good shot there by Dan. A nice recovery. Makes that run back, gets rid of one U.S. stone, and most importantly, removes the guards. You see it come in there.
Sorry about the first one.
No guards on the center line anymore, and the U.S. stone is
Chipped it over, which was good.
gone from the top of the house.
So Dan Mustapik delivering for New Zealand with his second stone. And now Skip Stone's ahead, first for Heath McCormick.
See Heath's percentages there, 68%, which again is a pretty low number, indicating the sloppy play that we've talked about. He's going to just try and place a guard here. U.S. is lying one, just biting the forefoot. Didn't want it that deep. It's going to leave New Zealand a potential double.
How much do you like? Yeah.
If they hit that Yellowstone just to the inside of nose, get both yellows out of the rings, they can roll their shooter in and lie 2 with the hammer.
Across the face.
See Dan lining it up there. He wants to drive it back at that angle. Always important for the person in the house to take a look at that angle, understand where they need to hit the stone exactly.
Whoa. Oh. Close. Close. Whoa. Whoa. Yep. Whoa. 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 Okay, Hans. All right. Roll on.
Just didn't curl up for him, only gets the one. Another opportunity missed there by Team New Zealand.
It's not on.
Oh, darn.
All right. Throw it under the other guard. It's like the same
So some nervous chuckles of missed opportunities. Been a common theme here throughout this game between the U.S. and New Zealand.
Yeah.
The question here for the U.S. is you could throw a rock to the other side of the rings and force New Zealand to draw for one.
Not going to bury it, can't be in, right?
Heard Chris Plies just say there, if it's not going to bury, it can't be in.
Bury, it can't be in, so you got to let them.
So they're trying to draw to this location. But if it's short, that's where they want the rock to be. It needs to guard that stone in the rings. It's a pretty common play where you need to get a rock underneath, but if you don't, you're leaving an opportunity for the other team. So it's a judgment call on the sweeper's part as well as the person in the house.
I think we're going to be there. Whoa. I think we're there.
Yeah, the weight critical here for McCormick.
Whoa. Gotta move. Yeah.
Now that call for the front end to get to work.
Hard. Really gotta go. Hard.
This rock is curling like crazy. He's on the top one, and that's not what they wanted.
Thing just bent.
So either short or deep, and the middle not good, and that's where the U.S. is.
Right. I mean, this is going to set up a double again for Team New Zealand to maybe score multiples. And did Chris Plies just tap that other rock in? It's hard to say from that angle.
Middle of the 12th. Yeah.
Looks like they're going to shy away from playing that double and throw the safer shot to take a single point here.
On the nose, it only gets us one, I think.
Again, New Zealand hanging right with the United States.
Yep. Okay.
And if you're the Kiwis, you content to continue to kind of just plod along here with the U.S.?
Well, I think so. I mean, I think this plays right into New Zealand's hands. They wanted to keep the game low scoring and simple. And so far, with few exceptions, the game has been a matter of a few draws. We haven't seen the massively complicated ends where you have 5 or 6 or 7 stones right in the forefoot, which is, I think, what Heath McCormick would prefer.
There it goes. It's okay now. No. It's okay now. Easy. Just by itself now.
Just trying to get this one to stop in the forefoot. Chris Plies may have an opportunity to sweep it, but it does settle in.
Hans Frauenlob satisfied with taking one, and New Zealand takes the lead back from the United States 3-2 after 5 in this 8-end game on NBCSN Curling Night. Well, there may be a chance to stop at Gabe's after we're through, but there's still plenty of stones to be thrown here. NBCSN Curling Night, presented by the United States Olympic Committee. The action continues here for New Zealand and the United States. Kiwis leading 3-2, end number 6 underway. Again, it's only an 8-end game, so time's ticking here for both of these teams.
It is, and the U.S. now having Hammer in the 6th end. You like to have Hammer in the even ends, right? If the game plays out and you're able to score multiples with the Hammer in the even ends, especially in the later stages like this, you should be successful.
Okay. It's good. That's fine. Yeah.
Dan Mustapik able to help clear out the house a little bit in the back end. And now here's Chris Plies of Team USA.
Chris having a pretty solid game here.
No line.
Really want to
Where is it?
get some rocks in play, get a rock around some of these stones.
Hard.
You see the 2 U.S. stones, corner guards.
Hard. Yep. Keep going. Right.
Maybe thinking about trying to get around that New Zealand stone as well, but it comes up a little short. You heard Joe Polo say there, no finish, meaning that the rock just isn't getting that last little bit of curl at the end to get it behind stones.
Hans Frauenlob ready to do some work here in this sixth end with his first rock.
Whoa, 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 whoa. Bites health.
Open hit here. Would love to stick around and create a situation to force the U.S. to take one again. That rock rolling just out of the rings. Now the U.S. going to try and get around those stones again.
No, okay. So you want it to be like right here?
Yeah.
Can't pound it right in the first half.
A little more.
Yeah.
A little more.
Kind of got to be the natural weight,
Yeah.
right?
So Ply setting the broom, and Heath McCormick ready to put this stone into play. And the United States trailing here in the sixth end, 3-2.
Felt heavy.
Where?
It's good.
Yep.
T-line.
Back four.
T-line.
Can you? Yep.
Back four.
Okay, well.
Got it. You gotta stop.
Great communication.
Close. Yep. Don't want to go.
Don't want to go.
Yep. Whoa.
They'd love for this to stop for shot, but as long as it sits in the rings, it's not bad.
Does trickle to the back of the house.
I mean, he's got nothing for the blank anyways.
Teen. Still? Well, it depends on where he wants to go.
Won't be the front.
T-line.
T-line.
Yep.
How about here?
Yep.
So New Zealand choosing to split the rings, leave no doubles for McCormick, and that would be another force situation.
Okay. Back here's okay. Yeah, back there's okay.
If this rock happened to slip deep or be short, there might be a combination of angles on those two yellow stones you see right there for McCormick to try and get two. This one is sliding and does slide deep.
Keep going.
So maybe we'll see that combination, but Heath says no. It's not there, so yet another draw for one. We just can't get a multiple score here.
Yeah, and each team matching the other at this point. No crooked numbers up on the board yet. Just a flurry of ones in each end, and that trend looks like it could continue here if Heath McCormick can execute.
So something as a player that you would typically say in this type of shot is, you know, you've got a full 8 foot to draw to, right? It's a shot that 90% of players should make 99% of the time, especially at this level. And a good draw.
Mission accomplished. And again, a flurry of forces. Singles galore. 3-3. Will somebody put up multiple points in this game? Stick around and find out. We come back to Minnesota in a moment. The United States and New Zealand, they've been trading ones back and forth. That's raised the tension level a little bit. 3-all, seventh end underway. The United States, Joe Polo.
Line's good.
Line's good. Oh, if you can.
You gotta go.
Well, it's a little curious to me. I wonder what's going to transpire this end.
Line's great.
You know, if both teams are really going to go after it here. In this situation, Heath would be happy to force New Zealand to take one. And New Zealand would really prefer to blank the end and keep the hammer for the last end. But we've already got, 5 rocks in play.
And that may change the game plans for both sides. We'll see how it plays out here in the 7th.
We've seen this before. New Zealand having to sweep rocks right out of the shooter's hand. Barely gets by that guard, clips his own. Does get the U.S. stone, but his shooter rolls out. Wow. See this rock coming in, gets by the yellow, but clips the red on the way by. Redirects it and rolls out.
Lucky I threw that one up.
The almost look from Scott Becker.
Hard! Get it there, it'll be good. Hard!
Another effort from Joe Polo on the way.
Go, guys, hard! You got it.
This one over curling as well, catches those two reds in the top of the rings. Sits exposed, so New Zealand can hit it. New Zealand does have the hammer this end, and they're already laying 2, could be laying 3 in a second, so it's going to be interesting to see what Heath McCormick decides to do. That rock picking something up, a piece of debris.
Okay, Scott. Roll it. That's good. Shot, Scott.
And it does leave New Zealand laying 3 with the hammer. Can almost see that look on Heath's face of, do we keep going with risky business?
I think you have to.
Or do we simplify things? And they've decided they're going to take some risk.
Back 4.
So Chris Plies, again an Olympian in 2010, World Junior champion with gold in 2008. He was a phenom on the junior national circuit. 4 straight United States titles in the late 2000s.
Line's good.
Big moment for him in this game.
Line's good.
We can go at the end if you need it.
Close. Yep.
Got room.
Whoa, room.
Chris has been really close at a few national championships now with his old squad, and this is a big opportunity for him playing on this team.
Hard. Yep, keep going.
Try to get this shot all the way around and hidden and still lay for shot in the back of the rings there. Pretty good effort. Chris wanted this rock to curl a bit more. Comment there, it's just not curling, not getting that finish that we talked about earlier.
If there was a visual theme of this match, it's been the head shake. Nobody's really felt comfortable, but one of these teams going to have to persevere and find a way.
Back line!
Yep.
Dan Mustapik with his first offering here in the 7th.
This is that intern that Dan has struggled with this game. Looks like it's another one. And that one's probably going to spin out the back of the rings.
Try, guys. Just sweeping, guys.
So opportunity here for the United States. If they can get a rock around those 2 reds on the right-hand side of the center line and in the top 4 foot, they'd be sitting really good.
Maybe the biggest moment of the game to this point, this rock from Chris Plies.
Close. Yep.
Well, this is what I expected to see most of the game, is more rocks in play, more complication.
Hard. Whoa.
They're around. Will this rock sit down?
It will.
So they had to sweep that rock to get it by. So they're sweeping to get it by the red. Ideally, they'd like to see that rock stop right there, but it slips a couple of feet deep. So New Zealand can now follow them in and sit for shot and use that yellow stone for backing.
Let's see if Mustapik is up to the task. Almost a must make for Mustapik.
Another intern for Dan Mustapik. This one looks a little better.
Not big. No, not yet. Stay close to it, Dobby.
So this one isn't curling, and it looks a little deep. Chris Ply is sweeping it.
Okay, Dan.
Okay.
And it settles into the back 8-foot for second shot.
Good try, Dan.
Take more. I don't know if you took more ice on that or what happened.
It's not changing any. I think this path is slower.
So the U.S. with a chance to, again, get the first multiple point end of this game. And get into critical spot, 7th end of an 8-end game, tied at 3. New Zealand, though, still has the hammer.
Big shot for Heath McCormick in the 7th end here. Now they're thinking
A little less than yours. Just a hair less than yours, Chris.
steal, steal, steal.
Yep. Back forward. Yep.
U.S. is in a great position here. If Heath can get this rock anywhere in the rings above the tee line.
Hard, guys. Hard. Come on. Hard. Hard.
And they just touch that red stone. It's
Not horrible.
not a bad outcome. You hear Heath there say, not horrible. Would have loved to just get by that pair of stones at the top of the house, but he wrecks on them. Going to leave New Zealand a tough double.
Trying for a wee hit and flop, huh? Or it's double.
I don't want to hit it about here.
Just off nose.
Just off nose, yep.
Big moment for Hans
Yep.
Frauenlob.
You like that ice?
Yeah, next to last end.
Yeah.
You see the number of rocks in the house there, and can't say it enough. The U.S. really wanted to be in that type of position most of this game to create these difficult shots for New Zealand. And that's a pretty unlucky bounce there for Hans Frauenlob. Leaves the U.S. laying 2.
I don't want it to hang out a little bit too much because this does go around. Yeah.
That rock over curled for New Zealand. Huge opportunity for the U.S. in the 7th end here.
Okay.
Similar shot for Heath McCormick.
Yep.
Look at some of the United States women's team members looking on as their male counterparts from Team USA trying to get in the win column here in this double round robin competition between the U.S., China, Japan, and New Zealand.
Okay, go then.
U.S. lost its first match.
Gotta go
Heath
for line
McCormick
2.
trying to help change the outcome this time around.
I think the guys moved the broom out a little bit.
Short.
Give them a little more room. They're really working this one.
Line is perfect. Go. Go. Hard. Go.
Just by. You couldn't walk that rock down there and place it any better. U.S. lying 3.
Jelly there.
Does leave a draw for New Zealand, but this is the kind of shot, as you see Heath's rock come into the 4-foot there, this is the kind of shot that they wanted to force New Zealand to be playing this entire game.
Almost virtually no daylight there to slide that rock behind, but it's there, and the U.S. in business. Now the pressure squarely on Hans Frauenlob of New Zealand. Last stone, and a huge stone.
Got to curl a bit, guys.
On
By
the back
itself.
one.
No. By itself. No.
This rock is hanging out there, meaning it's not curling and looks like it's got a ton of weight.
Yep.
Gonna try and get the rub off their own, and they miss.
Sorry, guys.
Right to the back.
They miss a lot. And now after this game, which was tightly contested throughout, the U.S. with a sizable advantage headed to the final end of regulation with a 3-point advantage. This is a game of contrast. It's been nicknamed both chess on ice and the roaring game. And somehow both of them ring true. Curling is mind and matter, ins and outs, freezes and burns. And you can see proof on the faces of nearly everyone who plays. Who will be roaring at the end of this chess match, the United States or New Zealand? The final frame starts now. Well, neither the United States or New Zealand with more than a 1-point lead for the majority of this game, and then suddenly, boom, a 3-spot for the Americans in the 7th, and now the pressure squarely on New Zealand in this final 8th end.
See a couple of smiles from the U.S. guys here. I think a little relief after scoring 3 there in the 7th.
So Ryan Brunt with that first throw. The U.S. wants to keep it clean and simple, and now a big challenge here for the New Zealand squad that's played pretty well, had this game kind of going the way they wanted, and now they've got to go all out.
Yeah, they're going to have to take a bunch of risk in this end. The U.S. wanting to keep it clean, so they'll throw that first rock through. New Zealand wants to get some guards out front, try and make the most of them. It's really about running the other team out of rocks if you're the U.S. team, and really keeping as many stones in play as you can if you're New Zealand.
Yeah. Where? Right to here. Kind of wait. Board. Board.
Ryan Brunt, mid-age 28, 2-time United States champion, and 2 experiences representing America at Worlds for the men.
So this is our first and probably only example of the free guard zone here. We're still within the first 4 rocks of the end, so they're trying to move that red rock without moving it out of play, and that was going to go out of play, so Heath just stops it. It goes back to its original location.
Don't take that. Don't take that.
Oftentimes you'll see teams just try to tick a rock over and get it as far out of play as possible without removing it.
Again, that implemented to help alleviate types of things in this situation with team who would just waste rocks and continue to protect this advantage.
Yeah, back in the day it was, you'd see a 1-0 game, 2-1 game. It was relatively boring to watch, just lots of hits, and try to get a little more action now with the free guard zone.
Really? You don't like the one that's in the middle?
It doesn't matter. Yeah, they're all.
So a little discussion there about which rock to remove. Now that we're on the 5th rock of the end, you can remove any stones from play. That peel is going to spin out of the rings, fortunately for Joe Polo, because that's a shot he doesn't miss.
That's how you throw the tick shot, Brunt.
Is that on?
Oh.
Still a guard.
Put another one back.
Well, it's been that kind of game for both teams. Neither of them really able to get a true feel for the ice and almost just kind of for the rhythm of the competition here. It's been a struggle, but the U.S. in position to get a W.
Joe in particular has struggled mightily this game. I'm sure Coach will have some discussions with the squad afterward about their execution, and it's really come down to execution. The strategy has been sound.
That's coming down now. Yep. Check. Yep.
And Pete Fenson leading the men's team at this competition. 8-time United States champion.
All right, man, this is all you.
A little chance here for redemption for Joe if he can get a double peel on this one.
Hard! 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 Whoa.
Not liking it. And he leaves another guard out there, and he's not happy with that result at all. He's just frustrated.
They're fighting on the wing.
Frustrated for a team that's up 3 in the final end.
Just a touch more than I just threw. Yeah.
Well, I'm sure Joe Polo would tell you, it's, you know, he doesn't have games like this very often.
26.
So he's not so concerned about the score right now, but his performance.
Yep. Line. Hard line.
Yeah, the U.S. losing its opener
Hard line.
in the Curling Night competition. Looking to bounce back, even its record at 1-1 if it can hold on here in this final end. New Zealand trying to make it as difficult as it can for the U.S. to close this out.
Now Chris Plies will try and get a few of those rocks moving out of play.
Hard. Hard.
Well, oi, oi, oi is not the sound you want to hear after a shot.
Terrible.
I think this one first.
Spins one of the New Zealand rocks into the rings, which is the worst possible thing at this point.
Actually, here.
Yep.
Just not sharp.
Dan Mustapik.
Soft. Yeah, weight's good.
Line's
Top 8.
good. Yep, a little bit for line.
Plenty
Line's
of room,
okay.
guys. Loads of room.
Line's okay.
Like loads of room.
So here's what happens. You miss a couple of peels like that, and all of a sudden you have a 3-point lead. New Zealand has the hammer, and if they make this shot here, they're laying 2. Right, so now you have to make sure that you make every shot for the rest of the end to prevent them from tying the game.
Again, in this game, executing still a question mark since neither team's really been able to do it when it's wanted to, when it's mattered the most.
Out-turn, right? Yeah.
So New Zealand does get that rock in the rings, but they leave a double. Chris Plies is going to try and hit the inside of the red stone that Heath McCormick's right behind right now.
Whoa, whoa, whoa.
This rock's got a curl. Gets the one, rolls across the face of the other, and out of play.
No double for the Americans, but
I
still,
think I faded that on you that much.
the rocks are dwindling here for New Zealand.
That was closer than that.
So you just need to be smart about the way you play this end if you're Heath McCormick. At this point, if you give him 2, you give him 2. It's not going to win the game. It's not going to tie the game. So if there's an open piece of any red stone in the rings, that's the rock you're going to go after.
Tons of room. Loads. Tons of room. Tons of room. Easy, guys. Looks hot. Stay with it.
Good side view.
Yep,
The front end walks that down and finally gets to work.
Right back, right back, right back, right back. Shot, Dan.
It's a good shot.
Good shot, Dan.
Wanted to get that rock buried underneath some of those rocks on the side of the sheet. I don't think they did. Heath gonna hustle down to the hack already.
Heavy hack. Yep. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Heavy hack. Whoa, off.
Just playing a soft weight hit here.
Clean. Whoa, whoa.
Needs to get a piece of it to run them out of rocks.
Go.
Great shot by Heath.
So the U.S. skip. Still a tense moment, even with that 3-point lead here in the final end. And now New Zealand. And the window of opportunity continues to shrink.
Well, now you're down to your last stones, your last chance to count 3. So he's got to get this next stone completely hidden behind cover to make sure McCormick can't remove it from play.
Behind it. Yeah, Dick. Stay close. It's curling now. Yep. Hard. Room. Whoa. Got room. Yep. Got lots of room. Yep. Hard. Hard lines. Hard lines. Yep. Hard line.
This rock's curling, going to settle in on the top one. I believe mostly open for Heath McCormick.
If they said it was late, I could have let it curl, eh? Yeah, I know.
So it was tall order to begin with for the New Zealanders here into this final end. And saw that smile from Hans Frauenlob, knowing that it's really a simple job here for Heath McCormick to end things on this rock.
Great view there. You can see 7/8 of that rock, so he's just got to catch a piece of this and make sure one of them goes away, and they'll have won this game.
Heath McCormick trying to close it out for Team USA.
Clean. Whoa.
Like to hear clean.
And there it is. Certainly wasn't easy. Certainly how the United States maybe thought it would go. But it is a win. And they're on the board here in this double round robin competition with a gritty 6-3 win over New Zealand. We'll talk more with the United States skip and also review the women's competition in this portion of the draw in a moment. NBCSN Curling Night has been brought to you by the United States Olympic Committee. For the latest deals on official Team USA gear, visit TeamUSAShop.com. And by USA Curling and the Manhattan Curling Cup, coming to Chelsea Piers, New York this March. Well, it was a sweat for Team USA on this night in Minnesota, but somehow the U.S. surviving, trading points with New Zealand, able to put together a big seventh end to get the win, 6-3, and get on the board in this competition. Tracy Wilson standing by with what we presume to be a relieved Heath McCormick.
Heath, a tight game through 6 ends, and then in the 7th, you got the execution I think you were looking for. Take me through the 7th end.
Yeah, well, we were in a position where we really had to push the issue at that point. And we were fortunate in the end. I mean, I made a good shot on my last one, and he forced him to make a pressure shot, which he missed, and that's ideally what we were trying to do the entire game. We just couldn't really do it until the 7th end. So we still a little sloppy, as you know, even in the 6th and obviously in the 8th end was not ideally how that should have went. But overall, obviously happy to get the win for sure.
Congratulations on the win.
Thanks very much.
Well, John Heath discussing it, the 7th, the key moment of the match.
Yeah, Heath makes a great draw right here to put pressure on New Zealand, and Hans Frauenlob has a chance to follow him in here, and he just throws it wide. They try plan B at the end, and they don't get the rub. A score of 3 for the U.S.
And that stretched out the margin, ended up being the 6-3 final. Meantime, elsewhere in draw 2, China losing to Japan, so everybody even up. 1 win, 1 loss after 2 draws on the men's side. How about the women's competition? Team USA lost to China to start out. Better effort against New Zealand.
Yeah, they're a strong women's team. They have more experience than New Zealand, and it looks like they really just dominated that game.
Yeah, the U.S. seizing control early with 3 in the first and then able to score 4 in the 4th to break it open. An 11-2 final for the American women as they even up their record at 1 win and 1 loss. China the same, and Japan right now in the driver's seat on the women's side, John, with a 2-0 mark.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to next week's match between those two teams. They're very evenly matched, so it's going to be a great one to watch.
The Japanese and the Americans, that's our event next week on NBCSN Curling Night. That'll do it for this edition of the show. For John Benson and our entire NBC Curling Night crew, this is Jason Knapp. The Americans back and forth with Team New Zealand, but finally the guys representing America able to find a way and pick up the W on this night. So long from Minnesota.